The biggest difference between TV games and mobile games is how players interact with them. Instead of using a touchscreen, players control Android TVs using remote controls or game controllers. There are two basic types. The first is a D-pad or directional pad. This is the basic style of remote control that most Android TVs ship with. For that reason, it's very important to design for. And just like the controllers you may have used as a kid, it's important to realize that none of these buttons are pressure sensitive, so pressing harder won't make your car accelerate any faster. This is a game controller. Of course, the biggest difference with the remote control is the joysticks. Whereas you can think of the buttons on the D-pad as basically being on and off, the joysticks of course have a range of motion. In addition, Android TV games can also be controlled using devices connected via the Nearby Connections API. This lets players use their phone or tablet as a second screen input device. This opens up very cool options for multi-screen gaming. You can imagine that if you have friends over to your house to play a game, you don't necessarily have to purchase additional game controllers for them. They can simply use the phones they already have in their pockets. Check out the video in the instructor notes to learn more. Let's talk a bit about designing your control scheme. First, always plan for a D-pad. This control set is the default for Android TV. So at a minimum, you should at least be able to navigate your menus this way. Even if your game is best played with a game controller, make sure players can gracefully exit it through your menus using a D-pad. That said, it's best to support both D-pads and game controllers in your game whenever possible. Be explicit about what kinds of controllers your game works best with. Do this both in your Google Play description and when your game starts up. A good strategy is to detect at runtime what types of controllers are connected, and then prompt players if they're not an ideal type. This sets expectations properly and maximizes your chances of getting a good rating on Google Play. It's good practice to show visual controller instructions. If you do so, be sure the images you use are free from branding. Down the road, it may be possible to detect what brands of controllers are detected at runtime and show matching graphics for them. But for right now, please use this template. You can find this image and more like it by following the link in the instructor notes. Here are 3 tips for designing your control scheme. Start with default controls that are in line with what users expect in different regions. For example, if you plan to release both in Japan and the United States, make sure you set the defaults appropriately for each region. When possible, the back button should always work as expected. Usually it should navigate backward, breadcrumb style, through the previous screens the player has been on. For example, if the user is playing your game and presses back, you might take them to the pause screen. If they press back again, you might take them to your game's home screen. And if they press it yet again, take them all the way back to the Android TV home screen. Because TV remote controls, though, have a limited number of buttons, it's also appropriate to use the back button to bring up a context menu in your game. If you choose to do so, though, make it clear how to move back from there. Last, don't rely on special buttons. Not all controllers have start, search, or menu buttons, for example. You can learn more about best practices by following the link in the instructor notes.